What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the one and only Tesla stock and what you should be looking after for the future. I'm also going to do some in-depth technical analysis and give you guys my price prediction for tomorrow based off the charts are showing and based off the data that's coming out. I'm going to break down the earnings that just came out, some very big updates from Elon Musk himself involving Twitter and Tesla, and also break down what's going on with the markets. Now, before I break anything down, before I get into any more details, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Don't take any of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. And not only benefits me, it benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. And the last things, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you're guaranteed up to 12 free stocks, each worth up to $2,000. And the best part is, any of these 12 free stocks could be a free Tesla share. It's a limited time offer. The offer ends in just 4 days. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. Looking at Tesla, this thing was up 0.2% for the day during the open hours, but in the after hours, we're down over 1.8%. And right now, the market is not looking the best, at least for the short term. So, what's going on with the markets right now? Well, it's very important to note that we had big earnings that just came out, and things were not as great as some people would have wanted. So, the most anticipated ones for the day, at least for today, would be Shopify, Apple, and Amazon. Shopify actually beat on earnings. They did pretty well overall, and their CEO was very, very optimistic. He did mention the fact that they expect to be profitable very soon. However, when these came out, Apple and Amazon, Apple did beat on earnings, which was very good, and this could have helped the market pump. However, Amazon was a huge miss. And because of the fact that this miss was so big, this will likely offset what happened with Apple, and the market will be affected by this because Amazon is so huge. And what happened with Amazon is shaking the markets as I speak. So for Apple, first off, they beat on the third quarter June 2022 earnings. You guys could see right here, they beat with $1.20 per share on revenue and about $83 billion as well. So congratulations to them. They actually did a lot better than many people would have anticipated. However, if you look at what happened with Bloomberg, they just noted that Amazon crashed 21% after the 4Q net sales forecast miss. That's because of the fact that the forecast and projections for Amazon are not the best, and they did miss on many big earnings. So for Amazon, let me just pull up the chart real quick. They're currently down 15.8% for the day at the time I'm recording this, and they were actually down 21% at one point in the after hours. So with all this huge talk about Amazon and Amazon dropping so hard, this will have a negative effect on the markets, and this will likely cause us to kind of like gap down tomorrow. However, the market is also very manipulated, and there are still lots of buyers stepping in. So I don't necessarily think we're just going to crash extremely hard and just crash all day tomorrow. I do think there will be some downside, but I'm hoping for us to actually kind of hold and consolidate a bit before we continue from there. Now, looking at the data for Tesla, it's important to note that Tesla is heavily affected by the big news that affects earnings in the overall market. It tends to be very correlated with the QQQ and also with the SPY. It does actually affect the QQQ big time. And recently, we did see a big improvement in the price price ratio. The small, tiny bounce right here is because of the fact that Tesla's been holding up a lot better than the overall market. So that will be a good sign for tomorrow. However, that doesn't necessarily mean Tesla is just safe from any potential downside. Now, Morgan Stanley just gave Tesla a nice rating saying it's going to likely outperform the overall market. And historically, on Fridays, Tesla tends to be green about 48% of the time. So historically, Fridays tend to be a little bit more on the red side. That's because of max pain and options expirations and other facets like that. And looking at the data, one sign that's not the best is the fact that the short interest it is still kind of high, but it has been on a slight downtrend since Tesla had that big drop recently. So I'm still hoping that we do see a continuation of this downtrend and the shorting isn't as extreme, at least for the temporary short term. The overall volume on Tesla was a little bit weak, which is not the best of signs because there are not as much buyers stepping in, nor is there as much liquidity. And then going down right here with the price volume percentage, you will see right here that 46% of trades ended up actually, the short volume percentage was 46%, which is a sign that we're seeing a slight uptrend and the shorts are getting a slight edge over the bulls, at least for the short term. Now, it was also noted that on his Twitter, Musk actually responded to this tweet from Peter Schiff, and it basically stated the fact that Elon Musk did sell some of his his Tesla shares for the short term to actually help close this deal, and Musk did laugh about that. But what I'm trying to say is the fact that there's all this talk, there were all these things being said in the past about Musk selling more shares, and I noticed that it seems like he's done selling it. I have not seen more confirmation of him selling yet, so I don't really anticipate Musk is going to be selling more. And I think that much of that has been priced in, so I'm not as worried about that. But I do think that the overall market will have a bigger effect on Tesla for the short term. Now, for tomorrow, was also noted that Elon Musk is also going to be closing the deal with Twitter. This is also going to be big for the markets. It's going to be huge for Twitter, and Twitter will no longer be traded publicly because of this. He's going to be taking it private technically. So, because of this, I mean, Tesla may have a reaction to this, but I don't think it's going to be as significant because much of this is priced in. But it is something worth noting because when your CEO is buying another company, Tesla tends to not respond as positively to this, at least historically, because there was a lot of like fear about Elon Musk not being as involved in the company, and him not being involved could actually slow them down, according to many analysts. However, I strongly disagree with that. I still think Musk is going to defy the odds, and Tesla will be completely fine, even if Musk does do a lot of work for Twitter and he does not dedicate as much time as before to Tesla. Now, this doesn't mean it's the end of the world because a lot of Tesla's vision and roadmap are still laid out, and Musk will still be very active on Twitter, especially Twitter, because he'll be giving us more updates and he'll be more blunt. But on top of that, he's still going to be giving us very, very great earnings in the future. I still think Tesla's going to do very well, so I'm not too worried about this. Now, from a technical standpoint, looking at some big ETFs and earnings real quick before I talk about Tesla, it's important to note that for SPY, we're currently down about $3 right now, very close to that 376 level. I mentioned in one of my previous videos that I did see a potential retest of 380 for SPY over the next couple of days. However, we didn't necessarily get that. Instead, we actually retested and ended up dropping below it. So we didn't hold support as well as I thought, and the market dropped quicker than anticipated. So for the SPY, I'm watching this 376 to 375 zone. I want to see if we bounce off this. If not, we could end up coming all the way down to 372, if not 370 relatively quickly. So we need to hold 375, hoping we do. If not, there is going to be more downside for the collective markets. And I do anticipate we're going to be gapping down tomorrow. So we could push up and try to fill the gap if there is enough guidance and enough of the artificial propping up by market makers, by other institutions, and so on and so forth approaching midterms, because there is this thing known as midterm tape that causes the market to artificially pump as we approach it. That is something that's worth noting, but once again, we are going to gap down, so there will be some red for tomorrow, at least for most of the day, in my opinion. And I do believe there is still more potential downside after all the green we saw. I also want to talk about the NASDAQ real quick. It's right here. On the NASDAQ, we came below the support zone I was actually looking at, just a little bit below it, this 10,792 level. So the next zone I'll be watching for is that 10,500 zone. It does look like we could end up retesting that. And if that's the case, we could end up retesting this trend line right here, taking us all the way down to this level, all the way down here. So 10,500 could easily be retested again, if not an even lower zone. And if we end up breaking below it, then we have this big gap all the way down here to 10,036. So very important to note that. Going back to the QQQ, looks very similar in terms of its trend. It is currently at about, let me see, that's about 268 to 269 a share, so way down here. If we continue down, we do have some support at 266. We could see this retested, and just like the Nasdaq, if we don't hold 266, we could likely start to fill the gap all the way down here to this 261 level. Now, we need to see confirmation first before confirming that. I want to see how this reacts to 266 first. And if this does continue to break down below that zone, this could have a negative effect on Tesla too. So for Tesla, what am I essentially looking out for? Well, what I'm seeing for tomorrow is pretty obvious. It's pretty obvious that we're going to be gapping down. So I do think Tesla's going to be opening very close to this 222 to 220 zone, maybe like around 221, 222, somewhere around there. And if that's the case, we're going to be retesting 220 in my opinion for tomorrow. So where we move tomorrow does depend on what markets and institutions tend to do, because Amazon is down very hard, but lots of buyers are starting to step in to buy in at those very low zones. So that could cause Amazon to start pumping up a bit, even if we are red overall for the day. That means that Tesla could gap down, but we do have some potential to start pushing up back to this 222 level and maybe even approaching 225. But I wouldn't necessarily be too fixated on that, because if you look at the options chain and Max Pain for Tesla is at 220. Right. And on top of that, even though the put to call ratio is balanced, I'm noticing that there's a very big imbalance here. That's the fact that there are about 37,000 puts in the money and 376,000 out the money. So this incentivizes market makers to cause Tesla to drop a little bit more to bring more of these puts in the money to make money on them. And that is what could end up happening. I do think Tesla's going to close very close to about 220, which is why I am inclined to think there might be a little bit more downside than some people would want to see. So what's going to happen to Tesla for tomorrow? All right, what I think could end up happening, there's a more bullish and more bearish possibility. We're probably going to open around here, just for reference, 221, 222, like around here. All right, Tesla opens up like this. What's likely going to happen is we're going to come down and we're going to retest 220. I want to see if this thing holds. Now, there's a possibility that the market might see an initial kind of like sell off in the very beginning, and Tesla might come down like this, breaking below 220 and quickly retesting this like 215 zone. Very possible, guys. But if that is the case, it's very possible for us to get a nice bounce and the market might start pushing up again. And Tesla might end up kind of like approaching 220, which is where max pain is, and closing just about here. I do think that's very likely and very possible for Tesla, maybe a little bit below it. And I want to see this thing hold up a lot better than the overall market, because right now, big earnings are having a big effect on us. So this is how Tesla might end up reacting. Now, if you are like super, super bullish on the market and you think that, oh, it's not the end of the world, well, in my opinion, I think we're most likely going to see this. Another possibility that's less likely would be something like this, where we retest like 220, come a little lower, but then we start holding up pretty well and we start pushing. If you do see a move like this and you see Tesla like come all the way back up again to about 222, it is possible for us to start filling the gap a bit and maybe getting like an end of the day sell off approaching max pain. So that's another more bullish possibility. But like I said before, I'm still more inclined to seeing a move like this. So this is essentially what I'm predicting, guys. I do think Tesla's going to come down like this for tomorrow, retest maybe 215. And if things are even worse than anticipated, if the market is going to start seeing some capitulation, if people start panicking and more sellers come in, it's also possible for us to break below 215 and retest like 211. Once again, I'm not seeing confirmation of this just yet, which is why I'm not going to like predict that or like kind of like warn you guys about that just yet. But I will tell you guys to be prepared for that just in case we don't hold 215. 211 is the next major support zone. If 211 does not hold, then you have to watch. I would say we could kind of like bounce in between this zone, but the next major support zone is going to be 205. Then after that, we have 202 and then 200 flats. But I don't really see Tesla coming down all the way to these zones. It seems most likely like we're going to get a bounce between 215 and 211. I'm more inclined to saying it's going to be like 215, hopefully. So that's essentially what I have for this video, guys. Be ready for tomorrow. The markets tend to react very, very cautiously to the big news that's coming out. We also have FOMC coming out for next week, so we'll see how the market really moves. I'm not sure if we're going to see like a big continuation of the downturn approaching FOMC, followed by a big bounce. We don't truly know yet, but I want to just take this day by day instead of talking about the next like week or so. So for tomorrow, anticipate some more potential downside. I'm hoping for a nice bounce on Tesla. All right, so be calm, cool, and collected. Do what you have to do. We're most likely going to see this red line right here for tomorrow. Please watch and watch your zones, watch your indicators, do what's best for your families and your own portfolios. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Tomorrow's a big day. Tesla to the moon, because the long-term future is still incredibly bright. And peace out.